All right. I don't know how to do magic, but I do have a sense of how to use magic to steal money from the taxpayer. First, you need to take off anything that makes you look like a magician. That's key, Alex. The critical thing is to look like you're just a man in a suit trying to make a living.
Okay.
Who could have an objection to a man in a suit trying to make a living?
No objection.
First thing you should understand before I do this trick, don't try it at home. You could hurt yourself. If we thought about sawing you and having to undo it. The other thing you should know is Goldman Sachs and nobody else, none of the other banks, SocGen, there's a bunch of other banks that did this, did not break the law. That's the genius. Again, my friend Alex Witt, here to keep us honest.
I'm going to keep you honest, right? I'm going to watch this.
And explain how the investment giant Goldman Sachs pulled off the amazing trick of making $3 billion in 3 months' time while the entire financial system collapses, foreclosures are at a record, and unemployment skyrockets, and the U.S. dollar collapses. Shall we begin?
Let's.
All right. The end result, of course, of the magic trick, if it's done properly, $3 billion in profits. Goldman Sachs stock up 155% since March of this year. Goldman netting $3.4 billion in the last quarter. Ladies and gentlemen, quadrupling its earnings from a year ago. Its second most profitable quarter in the history of the firm. But how did they do it? Well, they sold some financial advice. $325 million worth. Again, if you've read the Huffington Post piece that I wrote yesterday, most traditional Wall Street businesses don't make nearly as much money as they used to because of transparency and technology. So $300 million for advice. $360 million they made selling stocks. Another couple of $100 million selling bonds. But take a look at the next number. $10 billion made in what they call trading and principal investments. So what does that mean? Basically, when our country crashed financially last year, and Goldman Sachs happened to be the beneficiary of the largesse of the taxpayer, they used all of the taxpayer money provided to them by way of the AIG pass-through, by way of all the different things, which we'll get into in a second. And now that the economy is recovering, they took all the money we gave them, purchased all of the assets out there. Again, take a look here, and I'll show you. Come onto the table. Imagine I supplied you with $70 billion at the nadir, Alex, of the asset decline, and that you were the only one in the country that had money, and you were then able to buy everything on the cheap, while all the other banks are collapsing, and everything comes back up. Back up. Please back up the teleprompter. Please, I'll beg you. Back that teleprompter right back up.
So Goldman had the favor.
Hold on. I'm sorry, Alex.
That's all right.
People from Fox run our prompter sometimes, which makes it hard for us to communicate information, but it's okay. Since last October, here's what Goldman Sachs has received from the government. $10 billion in TARP money, $11 billion from the Fed, $30 billion in FDIC-backed assets, and $13 billion collected from AIG. That $70 billion in to Goldman Sachs, which if it was not delivered, by the way, the bank would effectively be defunct. And, roll the prompter, please. Here's where the magic comes in. The S&P index for the past 5 years, with the money that Goldman got from the taxpayer, went out and bought, as I mentioned, as much as it could at the bottom of this curve. They took the $70 billion and leveraged it 20 or 30 to 1. Which then gave them $2.1 trillion based on that taxpayer money. And then when the government pumped the trillions into the economy, the market surged, and poof, Goldman is rolling in the dough. Does that make sense? Let me make it a little easier.
Right.
Think of it like house flipping. Roll the prompter, please. I'll pay good money. Maybe Goldman Sachs is running the prompter. It'll make it hard to send this one around the internet anyway, which will keep people from knowing how they stole the money. Imagine there is a real estate crisis in your town, and all the houses on your block are suddenly in foreclosure. And imagine you are the only one on your block who has any money. And now imagine that that money was given to you by the taxpayer because your former CEO runs the Treasury. Now imagine you went and bought every house on the block when no one else wanted to buy a house for 10 cents on the dollar because everybody else was collapsing. Now imagine $24 trillion of taxpayer money was used to reinflate the economy after you purchased all the houses.
So they're valuable.
So now the houses have gone up 10 times. So again, you've bought every house in the middle of the collapse, effectively. That's what Goldman Sachs did. They get all the money from the taxpayer. They buy the assets. The assets reinflate. They're worth 10 times what they were because the taxpayers reinflated them. But at the moment of the decline, we supplied Goldman Sachs with enough money to buy the assets when no one else had the money. You like that?
You know, I'd say for pretty much everyone but Goldman Sachs, they're going to call this a little bit of black magic. A little bit of voodoo.
Black magic. I did a terrible job of explaining this, and I apologize, considering how important the material is.
No, I think people got it. If they're going to listen to the whole thing, they're going to get it.
All right. And you get to see fun with teleprompter. We are back after this.